Hey guys, I'm back with another book review today. This time I thought I would do a review of The Death of Ivan Ilyich, or Ivan Ilyich if you prefer the correct pronunciation. Yeah, it's a pretty thin thing, not a lot of meat on these bones, so to speak. Anyway, yeah, written by Leo Tolstoy, novella officially, but I think of it more as a parable. And we'll get into that, I suppose. Hopefully. I didn't quite think out what I was going to say, which is a recipe for disaster. But we'll give it a go. Right, so this was a work published after what I guess people have called Leo Tolstoy's, like spiritual crisis. After his, War and Peace, that sort of stuff. And initiated an era, what I like to refer to as Leo Tolstoy the Moralizer. Or Tolstoy the teacher, is the way I kind of think of it. And to be honest, we'll get into this as well. I don't have much interest in that in regard to him. But, that's fine, actually. That's a good place to start. I actually read this work some years ago now. It was kind of a weird place in my life. But then again, so is now. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't think much of it then. Didn't leave much of an impression. To my recollection, I thought that it was pretty much just like an extended version of a death scene. I believe that was in Anna Karenina. Yeah, it's pretty much an extended death scene, an extended version of the death scene in another book he did, is I believe what I thought of it then. Yeah. And I also didn't think much of Tolstoy then either. But I guess now it's been some time. I guess older, maybe more humble in the sense that I guess I just didn't really think much of Tolstoy. I always kind of saw him as kind of a self-abnegating type, kind of an aristocratic LARPer, whose solution to everything was to pick up a scythe. It's not something I supremely took seriously. And his works didn't really impress me that much. I mean, Anna Karenina I always thought was good, but I don't know. I guess I don't see the appeal of War and Peace besides its length. But this is the part where the humbleness comes in, okay? Because I only read a couple hundred pages of War and Peace, but I'm going to commit now to reading the entire thing, as well as I'll revisit Anna Karenina. I barely remember it. As well as I don't know why I had such strong opinions on Tolstoy. I don't know him. I haven't read all of his works. I haven't read a biography about him. But nevertheless, those were the impressions I had. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with just having impressions. And I still have some. But I guess it should be more, dedicated to figuring out the truth of the matter. But that's really about me, I guess. But it should be about the novella or the parable. Right, so The Death of Ivan Ilyich. It's short, obviously. Maybe some 50 some pages, 55 maybe, I don't know. Split into 12 chapters. I kind of think of it really split into two parts if you really have to categorize it, I guess. I would say the first half of it is... I guess, I would say maybe a borderline, filled with borderline, American Psycho tier behaviors, and interactions. And, for instance, so the title character, Ivan Ilyich, we start in the midst of things. He dies, and his friends or colleagues immediately start thinking about how his death will affect their positions and promotions and stuff like that. Um, and we just see how they go to like the funerals, sort of like social function, and basically are playing all these roles, like, oh, as well as his Ivan Ilyich, wife. Just pretty much how they use people in the social games we play and stuff like that. Um, it's incredibly cynical. Uh, Perhaps to an unserious degree. Um, I don't know. Or like his wife is talking with one of his friends, and he sits on like a bad he has a bad seat. It's like a springy, and it keeps like trying to push him up. The seat does. It's, yeah, I guess like less attention or something. But she holds herself back from saying it because she thought that would be out of line with her, appearance, or I guess role of being like a grieving spouse, for example, stuff like that. It's just pretty cynical stuff. Um, yeah, and then from there, also I include this part of the first half, the American Psycho first half. We get some background. We start from Ivan Ilyich's childhood and his upbringing and his time in law school to becoming a lawyer, and how he pretty much is constantly trying to live a decent and pleasant life as he understands it to be. That is, I guess, like the social perception of that. So he buys all the things that rich people buy, except that everyone else who's like feigning to be rich is also buying those things. So it's basically like not what the rich people buy, it's like what the fake rich people buy. Stuff like, he's just always constantly trying to conform to basically what the public or social conception of success is and stuff like that. And so he gets married, not because he particularly is enthused to, but that's just like, oh, this is a good enough match, this woman, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. And so he's pretty much, his entire identity in life is defined as trying to have this decent and pleasant life and conform to societal standards and the like. And he's a dogged social climber, always trying to get the next promotion. And he's really cold and calculating, but in a kind of passive way. So, for instance, it turns out that he doesn't have the best relationship with his wife, and they bicker and quarrel and spend too much, spend beyond their means, even when they get a promotion and a higher salary. That's just like, oh, now we can figure out a way to spend even more. It's just not a great situation, and they bicker a lot. And so he's just like, oh, okay, I'll just spend less time with them and spend more time in work. It's just kind of a cold and unhealthy way of thinking of things, truly. Yeah, because she doesn't want to be alone and she's bored, so she kind of nips out. And he doesn't want to be bored with her and miserable. Yeah, so just not great. Not a great situation. So this is the first half, the American Psycho half. If any of it resonates with you, it's incredibly bleak, black-pilling, hell depressing. But if not, or if you can dissociate, it's kind of funny. It is pretty funny, satirical and exaggerated. Pretty amusing in that regard, but I don't believe that was truly Tolstoy's intention. I'm for sure it's supposed to be a critique, and in that sense, because it's so one note and exaggerated, I don't take it supremely seriously. Life for me has always been pretty much various shades of gray, and I understand it's a short book. It's supposed to be, like I said, a parable, which in that sense, well, obviously you're not going to have like moral and like social complexities in various gradations in like a 50-page little thing, but it's kind of like what is that, Animal Farm or something like that. I mean, it's just not very nuanced, simplistic. straw man-y. Not everyone behaves like this all the time, or thinks as cynically as these people. Like, oh, I have to attend the funeral, but am I still gonna make it to the card game? Like, not everyone has these types of relationships all the time, or there's various degrees, or it's not all bad in all respects. Maybe some of these things are true for a lot of people, but not all of them at once. All right. Yeah. Okay. And then we transition to the second part of the novella or parable, which is basically Ivan Ilyich. Well, he's dying from some unknown malady. It's not really ever defined, and it really doesn't matter. He's dying. He's inflicted with some illness, and he starts to question everything. Primarily, he starts to think about death, and this is the part where I guess some of my interpretations come in, and it's kind of contra to Tolstoy's, I would assume. Sorry, I'm trying to think about like how to explain this, because I'm like explaining the story, and if I start like explaining my interpretation of it on top of it, the lines are going to be blurred between what's actually in the story and like what's coming from me, like my editorializing or whatever. Yeah. So Tolstoy, Ivan Ilyich, he has this illness or whatever, and he thinks he's dying, but the doctors won't tell him such. But even so, he keeps oscillating himself between two mindsets: that it's over for him, he's doomed, and the hope that he'll recover, that there'll be some sort of miracle and he'll be all good. But he's kind of having this awareness or doubts that he's like, that there's some, I guess, like this blackness in him from this illness, and it's like leaching out of him to other people. So he starts thinking that he starts like reading into every interaction, like he's playing cards, and he thinks his mate, his teammate or whatever, is like pitying him in the game in like a meta way, I guess. And he thinks he's like bringing the entire atmosphere everywhere he goes down, and he's like fumbling around at his job and stuff like that. Kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard. And so he kind of withdraws and secludes himself, and eventually ends up just staying in like one room on a couch or sofa, I guess, whatever you want to say. But he's dying, and he's like cognizant of that. And I guess a large point of what Tolstoy was trying to make is that none of these people are ever thinking about death or thinking that it could happen to them. Like, they recognize it. Whereas the character, Ivan Ilyich, he has like an intellectual understanding of it through the syllogism, the famous one, Socrates is a man, all men are mortal. Or excuse me, okay, I'm completely like butchering this. Socrates is a man, men are mortal, therefore Socrates is immortal, which I guess inherent in the word mortal is like, he's going to die, okay? Or is like, here, I can think of this better on the fly. Socrates is immortal, mortals die, therefore Socrates will die, okay? Something like that, but it wasn't Socrates, it was some, Russian logician's example or whatever, okay? So he has that understanding, but it's never like internalized in the sense like, oh, that's going to happen to me. That just happens to other people. Likewise, after his death, his friends are like, oh, it's unfortunate that it happened to him, but could it happen to me? And as soon as that thought like hits their head, they immediately like run and think of something else, or like, oh no, or distract themselves with whatever. And I am to understand, I think, that Tolstoy was trying to make that a bad thing. I think when this is the part where I come in, I think that's likely a natural thing. I'm guessing that, I'm kind of reminded of this, I don't know if it's like a quote or the saying or understanding of dogs I heard once, that when they're dying, that apparently it's not uncommon for them to run away or go off into like the woods to die by themselves. Some people have tried to project like evolutionary explanations onto that they biological or something, think that they could be a threat to the herd or whatever. So they isolate themselves and go off to die. I kind of wonder if that's the same phenomenon that inflicted Mr. Ivan Ilyich. Or it could be like the explanatory mechanism behind why he isolated, or why he thought he saw everyone pitying him, and he thought like everything was connected to his illness, like every single interaction he had and whatnot. Or his like wife's like, so you don't fall off the ladder again, I'll move some stuff. He's like, oh, what does that mean? You're gonna have the servants move stuff. What, am I not capable? You know I'm like dying. You feel pity for me? It's, yeah. Anyway, so I'm guessing that's likely natural, but that's not what Tolstoy was getting at. But I think I'm just speculating. I haven't almost died, and I haven't spent significant time with people who have ultimately died as they were dying. I'm guessing it's just like a complete like consciousness shift. Because if you are facing death, how could not, like, you're reflecting on your entire life, you'd, I don't think it's a natural thing for normal people to think about death, because why would it be? Or to be like constantly like reassessing life. And like how you got to this point. Because, like, why would you? And, of course, when you're dying, all these games, these social games, these social climbing, these roles he played as a prosecutor or whatever, or the roles the doctor plays, the games, you know, that everyone kind of sees through, but we just go along, the social niceties, all that sort of stuff. Of course, it all seems silly, or the petty things that you get upset about or excited about or waste your time on. Of course, it all seems silly to a dying person. It would seem such a waste of time, and I'm guessing everyone has those regrets if they think about it. But I'm guessing, well, it's just not a natural thing to think about unless if you're dying. And I think that's pretty much almost inevitable, because I'm guessing you'd be reduced to a state of paralysis. Right. Anyway, I guess I kind of gave some of the game away. So, like I said, the second half, Ivan Ilyich is like, why is this happening? What does it mean if I'm not gonna be here anymore? What does it mean if there's not gonna be a me? What is death? Why is it happening to me? And then some uncomfortable thoughts start to creep in. He's like, well, it could surely be explained why this is happening to me if I didn't have a good life. But of course I had a good life. It fulfilled all these standards that everyone, you know, I did everything right. I played the game. I did the dance. I've done everything that everyone thinks is, you know, decent and pleasant. I checked all the boxes. I made all the right circles, acquaintances. I had the prestige. I did it. What do you mean? What do you mean? I did everything right. How could I not have had a good life or done good? So he throws that thought out of his mind completely for a while. And his sickness grows worse. The doctors can't help him. They contradict each other. They have no idea what's going on. His wife, who didn't take his illness seriously at first, begins to. And he grows to despise pretty much his family. The only person he likes is the servant boy, who acknowledges that he's dying. And who helps him out because, well, he knows that he'll die one day too, and he wants somebody to help him like he helps Ivan Ilyich, the servant boy, that is. Anyway, but besides, he eventually, well, after, you know, pages, chapters, or whatever, he comes to the realization that it was like, this is where I come in again. I think Tolstoy was not necessarily making a positive message in the sense that he was telling us what the... Okay, so the thing that struck me the most was near the end, okay? The question, he kind of realizes that he didn't. He finally acknowledges, and it's kind of freeing for him, that he didn't have the good life. He didn't do what was right. And then he asks the most critical question, and what I take personally to be the lesson from this, parable, he asks, what is right? And I'm content to leave it there. I think that is the most important question and really the foundation for life itself, or at least the good life for me, I guess. It really begins with that question and a serious examination, maybe more so than the answer for most people. What is right? I don't know if people consider that often. And I don't think you have to face death to have that thought or to ask that question. And I think it's critical that people do. Maybe so you don't end up like him, tormented and screaming for days, for literal days, in torment and anguish. Screams that can be heard throughout the entire house, through closed doors, 3 rooms away, is screaming. And I take it that is, if you say punishment, it kind of takes on a moralistic element that I don't think it was, or it kind of implies that there's some agent behind the punishment, I guess. I don't know. But he never considered what was right. What is right? And what Tolstoy comes back in is that I'm not particularly interested. I don't trust him to try and answer that question in the way that he sees it. I don't want to. Like he seems like a well enough. I don't attribute any malintent to Tolstoy or anything like that. He seems, I don't know what the word is. He had convictions. And I respect people who have convictions. I just think that ultimately he had the wrong conclusions, and that can be damaging. I don't think a lot of his ideas were good, and his philosopher, moral teacher, and political, I guess, commentator life. At the end there. But I'll commit to reading some of those works. Maybe I'll review them as well. But I am familiar with, yeah. Oh, this is very rambly today. I guess this is where I'm more interested in the question than Tolstoy's answer, I guess. What is right? Oh well. I think that's the only question that could I think asking that question is the only thing that can save people. So I guess an overall, what do I think about it reading it again? I'm not trying to be like a hater or anything, but I still don't think it will leave us. I mean, it's already. I mean, it hasn't been that long since I just finished it. Okay, I keep thinking what is right, but I don't know how long that this will leave an impression on me again. Like I said, I do feel like this is kind of like a parable So in that sense, it's kind of like a simplified, like moral lesson, which for me culminates in that question. Like I said, I think it's a little bit reductionist, perhaps, if it's meant to be a serious critique in the first half of higher society or whatever. And once again, like I said, I don't know about Tolstoy as a LARPer. Uh, what ultimately causes Tolstoy? He looks at his butler boy's, I guess face, his countenance or whatever, and sees like the purity in that, and then he recognizes the impurity. He finally acknowledges the impurity in his own life and in the life of his family and stuff like that, and I guess presumably his friends. And he feels pity for them, but it's based off of looking at his servant's face. I don't know if this is once again Tolstoy. The true nobility is in the like working class or peasants or whatever. Come on, bruh. I just made it simplistic and a little bit childish, in my opinion. Like I said, things have always seemed more complicated for me. But maybe I got things wrong, and I'm sure I'll have a different opinion when I read it again someday. But yeah, kind of weird. I'm not sure if this is even uploadable. This is pretty bad. Yeah, have you guys read this work? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section down below, okay? All right. Yeah, I'll commit to reading some of his other stuff or rereading it or whatever. I'll try to find the hippest translations. It's like I think I read Anna Karenina with a very old public domain one or something. So, and that was, yeah, a long time ago. I don't really remember it anymore. Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one.